All right, enough of our negativity. Let's go to the positive side and go to the Roman guest line. Bring in Buster Olney. You know him, of course, as ESPN senior writer, and you can hear him on ESPN Radio's opening day broadcast between the Reds and the Braves. First pitch set at 8 o'clock in the East, and his play-by-play partner is Roxy Bernstein. Buster, thanks so much for being with us, and this is a pretty generic question, but what are you most looking forward to this season? Because there's a lot of interesting storylines starting tomorrow.
Well, very specifically, it's watching the Toronto Blue Jays, who were so good at the end of last season and just in spring training. And I've been down in Florida quite a bit. You just keep on hearing from people about how good they look. They got that great core young player. So I'm really curious to, see how that plays out. And also about how, they're going to be affected, helped by this incredible competitive advantage with the vaccination issue. Teams going into Toronto, any players not vaccinated will not be allowed to play. And we're going to know, series after series, which players aren't vaccinated and which teams are going to be at a disadvantage going into Toronto. It's going to be a fascinating dynamic that we've never seen before.
I haven't even thought about that. And you see the Blue Jays, they have the second best odds to win it all. And we saw this last year with the Blue Jays and also the White Sox, teams that are great regular season teams. They look great on paper, but the postseason rolls around and they're just not nearly as competitive. And I think for the White Sox, it's the fact that they've had to face the Astros. But what is the difference between a team that is great in the regular season and a team that truly can contend in the postseason?
Well, specifically, I'll tell you about the White Sox. And I've had this conversation with players on the team, just as I had it with the players in the Cleveland Indians in the past. They do privately feel like that they're at a disadvantage when they get to the postseason because the American League Central generally is not that competitive. Like we knew in the third week of July last year, the White Sox are going to win that division, so they kind of play out the string. It's a little bit like if you imagine like a team from the Atlantic 10 making the NCAA tournament and then waiting around to face Duke. It's like a step up in level and competition by the time they get to October. The good thing is, and this is also part of the conversation we've had with players this spring, there's a general feeling that the American League Central is going to be better this year. It's going to be more competitive because the Royals have gotten better, the Tigers have gotten better. Cleveland is going to be competitive in the first half of the season. But I think a lot for the teams in the American League Central, that is a hurdle they have to overcome.
Buster Olney, ESPN senior writer, and make sure you listen to him on ESPN Radio's opening day broadcast between the Reds and the Braves. First pitch at 8 o'clock in the East. And, of course, he's host of the Baseball Tonight podcast as well. Buster, who is a player right now that maybe we're not talking about very much, but by the end of this season, he's going to be someone that everyone knows about or who has made a real impression this year?
Bobby Witt Jr., the Kansas City Royals. He's my pick to be the American League Rookie of the Year. I've talked with evaluators who are not hype guys, and they talk about him like he's the second coming of Chipper Jones. In terms of the range of skills that he has, the maturity that he has, the humility, that he has in terms of approaching issues day by day. And he's like Mike Trout in this regard. And I'm not saying he's as good as Trout out of the gate, but he's like Trout in this regard is that he has so many ways to beat you on a daily basis. He's got hit skills. He's got unbelievable power. He can steal you 20, 30 bases during the course of the year. I think he's going to have a huge impact. It's one of the reasons why I think the Royals are going to exceed expectations.
Buster, my eyes lit up when I heard that we can talk about actual bets with you because nobody better when it comes to baseball knowledge. And obviously we are a sports betting show. So I heard that you like a couple of win totals involving the Orioles and the Tigers.
Yeah, and I don't know what numbers you guys have seen on these two specific teams, but I remember a couple of weeks ago, I think that I saw that the Orioles were at 62.5, which to me is one of the easiest unders that I've ever seen. When you think about it, since the end of last season, the Orioles, who I think they went 53 and 109 last year, they basically added a backup catcher and two, a relief pitcher and not much else. Like, they clearly are continuing to tank, and their aim is to lose. That's the design of the front office. And they're in the American League East with all these teams. The Red Sox going out and getting Trevor Story, the Yankees going out, upgrading their defense all around the infield, and a catcher. We talked about the Blue Jays, how good they could be. The Rays are the Rays. Even in a down year, they're still going to win 86, 87 games. And I cannot imagine why anybody thinks that the Orioles are going to be 10 games better than they were a year ago. That one jumped out at me. And then the Detroit Tigers, I don't know what numbers you guys have on them in terms of the over-under, but I know this, and I've spent a few days around them this spring. They're trying to win, unlike the Orioles. In fact, you saw the other day, they went out and made that deal, took on a bunch of payroll late in spring training, adding Austin Meadows. They have some terrific young pitching coming up, that's developed now in the big leagues. And there's a really good feel around that team. Within that context, the American League Central, I absolutely would go over on the Tigers.
I wanted to ask you about PitchCom, which is fascinating. How will this change the game?
Yeah.
And do you like it? Because, of course, signs and sign stealing, that's been a part of the game for a long time, but this is going to alter how it's played and how it's consumed.
Yeah, it's going to completely change the game in the way that it's played, in the way that we view it. Because, since I was a kid, since you guys were kids, you watch a game and you get that great center field shot, and you look at the catcher, and the catcher's flashy signs out the pitcher, and they shake off. None of that's going to happen. So the catcher wears a wristband, a transmitter on his wristband, and he can call a pitch, and he can specify location. So, in other words, he hits two buttons, fastball outside, just by pushing the buttons. The pitcher and three other position players can wear transmitters so they hear what the pitch call is. And that, of course, means you're not going to have a situation where, they have to go through multiple sets of signs and the pitcher steps off because the catcher maybe forgot the signs, which happens more than I think people realize, or they're concerned about the base runner at second base. The pitcher hears what the sign is. And so there's not any of that back and forth. I think it's going to speed up the game. I think it's going to get baseball past the sign stealing element. From what I understand, some teams are very comfortable with it. They have rave reviews about it so far. Some teams like the Tigers, who I was around yesterday, saying, well, not yet, we're not there. But by the end of the year, all 30 teams will be using this. And here's a cool element, something for you guys to think about. You can customize the voice that comes out of the transmitter, like on the pitcher's cap. It can be in Spanish, it can be in English, and you could have James Earl Jones be your voice. I was talking with David Cohn yesterday in the visiting dugout, and he was like, well, Bob Shepard, the former Yankees PA announcer, that would be my voice. So, and I'm going to do a Bob Shepard here, but it's fastball outside. I think it could be a lot of fun, and I got to think about what voice I would use.
I think for me, it would be Vin Scully. He's got to have one of the most iconic voices, and it's just so soft and soothing that if you had any nerves, I feel like they would be quieted by Vin Scully. But let's talk about the Mets. They have the fourth best odds to win it all, and baseball is so analytical. There are so many numbers and metrics you can use, but the only phrase I can think of to describe the Mets is, well, the Mets are going to Mets. And it appears that the Mets are already Metting. Do you think there's still hope for the Mets to win the World Series after all of this drama surrounding Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer being hurt? Do you think they can still win it all?
Yes. And what's different about the Mets than, in the past, and that phrase has been absolutely appropriate, the Mets, doing Mets stuff, is that their owner, Steve Cohen, wants to win a World Series, cost be damned. This is someone who, had one of his lieutenants had an opportunity to buy the baseball that rolled through Bill Buckner's legs. And the initial estimate from his underling was, well, it's probably going to cost us about $140,000. The cost jumped up to close to $500,000, and Steve Cohen got it anyway. His art collection is worth over $1 billion. He wants to win a World Series. So as this year goes along, if Jacob deGrom, let's say injuries plague him all year, and I think there's a really good chance that's going to be the case. I mean, because he had so many physical issues last year. If you told me that, you had a major procedure during the course of the season, it wouldn't be a shock. But if they have holes during the year, Steve Cohen's going to tell Billy Epler, new general manager, just go buy another pitcher. Go out and add players. They're going to be hyper-aggressive because he wants to. And I think that's what they're going to have to do to overcome some of the issues that are popping up early this year.
He's appearing on the Roman guest line. It is Buster Olney, of course, ESPN senior writer and host of the Baseball Tonight podcast. Listen to him tomorrow on ESPN Radio's opening day broadcast between the Reds and the Braves. First pitch is at 8 p.m. in the East. Buster, great stuff. We appreciate your time.